Yankees Files podcast. We are back. I'm Will Harris, you're Alec Whipple, and the rest of you are fans of the team with the highest expected weighted on base average in Major League Baseball, the highest WRC plus in Major League Baseball, and the only player named Jazz who's from the Bahamas who's currently active in Major League Baseball. That team, of course, is the New York Yankees. Whipple, we have a ton to get to on this episode. We are within 25 hours of the trade deadline. The Yankees just took a series at Fenway Park. I got married. We're back from a month-long hiatus. There's so much to discuss. But first, how are you doing? You're on vacation.
Do all of those things have equal weight? I am. Is the series at Fenway and the marriage, it's all about the same? I mean, honestly, maybe.
Maybe. You never know.
No, I'm good. I am on vacation. I just wrapped up with my fancy law internship, as you've referred to it as, and I'm in South Carolina, so I'm enjoying that. You just got back from a vacation of your own, a little bit more high end, high profile than mine, but honeymoon was a success, as it sounds like it was. And before we talk baseball, because so much is going on in the baseball world, and I'm sure in this hour a lot is going to happen behind the scenes.
Probably.
We got to talk wedding. I mean, in the last 3 weeks, we've both been doing our own thing, but we converged at Mystic, Connecticut and Watch Hill, Rhode Island, and one pretty awesome night, as I was just saying. And I got to hear from you about the wedding because I was just a guest, but it was such a fun event. You saw the pictures that I took and I put on Yankees Files, but just my experience, my girlfriend and I came. We showed up, cut it a little close because of some Amtrak issues, but the venue, the church ceremony was incredible, and the reception was just amazing. I mean, the Watch Hill Ocean House, if you've never been, I encourage you all to go if you live in the Northeast, because you're right on the water. You get some great views. The food was excellent. And I got to say, the food was excellent. The views, everything about the reception was great, but the MVPs of the event were your grandparents, because I walked in and I kind of was like, okay, I'm going to find his parents. I'm going to meet some of his friends. I didn't have time to do any of that because your grandparents cornered me. I was there for 2 minutes and your grandmother cornered me. And then your grandfather was right behind, and we were just talking for a long time, and they're the best. As I love your family. I love your grandparents even more than your parents now. They are huge Yankees fans. They're huge fans of Yankees Files. They're telling me about Yankee stuff. They're telling me about when your dad was in law school and his experience with that. And I thought that was my favorite part of the wedding. Obviously, hanging out with you and your friends was great, but and seeing your parents, your grandparents were just awesome people. And I was so happy to get to meet them. So that was my wedding experience. Was good food, good people, great grandparents. But it wasn't my wedding, so I got to hear a little bit from you about everything.
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, thank you. They'll be very happy to hear that when they listen to this podcast. So a shout out to them. They were really, I think, the stars of the reception on the dance floor. Yeah.
And everyone, all the 20s, 30s people, they had more energy than them. I thought I'm bound down to that.
No, they were very impressive to me. It was an awesome time. Great day. Everything went off kind of exactly as we had imagined it. And of course, all the credit for everything going as well as it did, and everything being planned as well as it was, and everything being designed to look the way it did, that all goes to Therese. She did an amazing job. She planned the whole thing herself. And we obviously had a blast, could not be happier with how it went, but I'm kind of in awe of just what an incredible job she did. But it was funny. So, we walk in, we have the first dance, and then Therese dances with her dad, and then I had to dance with my mom. And while we're dancing, I say to my mom, she's remarking about how nice it is and how beautiful everything looks, and what a great venue and all this stuff. And I said, Mom, can you believe Therese planned all this? And she just looked at me like I was an idiot and went, yeah. So that was fun. But no, I mean, just so great to see all of our friends and have our families there. So much fun to, hang out with you and everyone else from growing up who was able to be there, which was really cool. Yeah, great drinks, great food, beautiful weather. It had been raining that morning and then it all cleared up. Great ceremony, great reception. Like I have no notes. It was an awesome day. It was so much fun. And yeah, it was everything that we wanted it to be. So could not be happier with how it all went. It's kind of funny though. You're talking about like, oh, I was just a guest, blah, blah, blah. Like I gotta be honest. I think I would have really liked attending that wedding as a guest. Like it was like, and obviously because like it was planned to be the kind of thing that I would like, but like it was very much up my alley. Like I think I would have had a lot of fun as a guest. I of course had a lot of fun being in it.
No, I mean, I feel like weddings are like, it's obviously a lot for the guests and to make sure everyone has a good time. And you guys did a great job with that. I think
Thank you.
you would have had fun on either end of it. I thought it was funny, like how, I mean, like you said, I knew a lot of the people from Avon. It was great to catch up with some of them, but I walked onto and I don't think I've told you a lot of these like vignettes because like you were so busy. I walked onto the shuttle taking us back to the hotel from the ceremony. And yeah, it was like I was walking into like, like I don't know, like my reception, my server. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, it's Whipple. Like there he is." And
so many people were so excited to meet you.
Yeah, like all your Notre Dame friends are awesome. If any of them are listening to this, I really liked meeting you guys, hanging out with you guys. Especially Matt Harris, but I knew Matt Harris and everyone else who I didn't know. It was great to meet. But I was kind of like, oh my God, there's so many people. And then I turned and hit my head on the roof of the the side of the bus. And Morgan looked at me and she's like, that's everyone's first impression of you now. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of like the vibe I give off of like enthusiastic but clumsy. So, but no, we were all hanging out, drinking beer, going to Watch Hill. That was such a fun time. And yeah, I think it was designed for you, but I think you made everybody else feel like it was just a great celebration. And I mean, the Yankees won their lone series between this weekend and early June. And so, I would have said their only series before this weekend, but that was a nice wedding present as well. I would have to imagine.
It sure was. Yeah, the Yankees winning on the night of the rehearsal dinner and the night of the wedding was very good.
And I mean, this isn't a political podcast, but political events of the weekend definitely will make it memorable. When you ran over and said that about obviously the wedding day was the same day that former President Trump was shot at. It was such a random thing. I would have bet you would be saying anything else, really anything else before that. So one of those things that you're not going to forget, that was the day that X happened. But it wouldn't be your wedding without some crazy stuff. So
it was insane. I walked over to the table that, or one of the tables that sat my friends. My friends were at many tables, of course, but and they said Trump got shot. I was like, what are you talking about? Of all the things that I expected to hear as, Teresa's dad is thanking everyone for attending. That was not one of them. But yeah, it was a great day and a great party. And again, thank you to Therese, who deserves all the credit for making it the way that it was. And we were so happy that you could be there and that our friends and our families could be there. And it was an awesome time and the Yankees won. And yeah, it was great.
That's good. I'd love to hear it. I will have to plan my future wedding on a day that I know the Yankees are going to win.
You will.
Make sure
it helps to pick a weekend when you'd normally go to all the games in person and then be out of that city and getting married and unavailable. That is something that worked for me. But Whipple, things were going so great with the wedding and, I felt like you and I were getting along really well. It was so great to see you in person, which we don't get to do very often, and to see Morgan and all of that. And then I went on my honeymoon and I had this phenomenal time. And then I came back to find out that we have beef.
Okay. to be fair to me,
Wait. Let's. People might not know what the beef is. So let's. What do you think the beef is?
what I posted on Friday night.
Yeah, that's exactly what the beef is.
I'm not going to sit here.
I go on my honeymoon. I entrust control of the Twitter account to you, and I come back and I find that you tweeted, "This team sucks." And all the trolls jump on it. Red Sox fans are responding, "I'm happy, you're unhappy." I wasn't unhappy. That didn't represent me. Like, what? And obviously, you are a co-equal part of this this operation, and you have access to the Twitter account for a reason, and you can tweet whatever. But this team sucks. We're serious? What are we doing?
I was supposed to sit there on Friday night and watch that and not be upset about what?
I'm not saying you weren't supposed to be upset, although I don't know how you were supposed to sit there on Friday night and watch that and not be upset, because I wasn't watching. But what I do know is I personally don't make the decision about whether or not the team sucks based on the events of like 3 innings of a baseball game.
Okay, but
and it feels like that's what happened.
No. I was making the decision based on the events of an extended period of baseball, which, to be fair to the Yankees, they have addressed in pretty significant ways, I would say, with the performances in the last few games, a response to some of those poor performances. But you can't tell me that after watching week after week what has gone on, I'm not allowed to be at least a little bit frustrated about the team's play.
I mean, you can be frustrated with the team's play, but
I'm not going to look and see that Judge and Soto are combined for an 1100 OPS or whatever it is, and the rest of the hitters are 670 or whatever they say on the broadcast, and say, okay, right now I don't like how this team is playing.
So does the team suck? Do you think the team that is one of 5 teams that has won more than 60 games, that leads the league in WRC plus, that leads the league in xWOBA, that leads the league in runs per game, do you think the team sucks?
I think there are serious issues with the team's play in the last 6 weeks.
Does the team suck?
That's a broad question.
Well, it's one that you answered in that tweet. First in position player, Fangraphs war.
Exactly what I meant. I went on to say exactly what I meant by the tweet. I said it's embarrassing. Everyone's performance outside of Judge and Soto is somewhat embarrassing in the last few weeks. That's what I meant. And after watching the game, which you weren't watching the last few games, so
I was not watching.
So it was hard for me to sit there on Friday and watch that, and have watched Wednesday and watched Tuesday. And somehow the games that I went to in person were actually the best ones.
Yeah,
like that's the low-key weird part of this, is like when they're 10-25, but I'm like,
but you've reversed the Whipple curse in the worst stretch that we can imagine.
But I think my reassessment after the last few games is I am more concerned about the pitching staff than I have been in a number of years. But I might have overreacted on the offense. Is that at least a proper walk back?
You said, "I'm tired of hoping guys will turn it around," when Austin Wells has like a 190 WRC plus in the last 6 weeks.
Austin Wells probably got lumped unfairly into that, but
so did Gleyber Torres, who has a 114 WRC plus in the last 300 plate appearances.
Gleyber Torres, until the last few weeks, has been up and down all season. Anthony Volpe is in a period of, except for the last few games, a pretty poor performance. Alex Verdugo is doing whatever the hell Alex Verdugo is doing.
Ben Rice has a 383 xWOBA. Only 2 first basemen with at least 100 plate appearances are better than that, and no one by more than.
Okay, Ben Rice, like, if looking at his actual numbers, I think it's fair to say that he's been, while impressive, not. I don't think he's
been unlucky.
Like an Austin. I'll say Austin Wells has been impressive. Recent Gleyber Torres has been impressive. Ben Rice has been. I'm positive about him, but he still has some work to do. That's what
work do you want him to do? He has a 383 xWOBA.
Okay, well, let's start translating that into real performance.
What, you think luck is his fault? Is that what we're doing? Lamonte, however you pronounce it, Wade has a 385 xWOBA. Vlad has a 393 xWOBA. Those are the only primary first basemen with at least 100 plate appearances with a higher xWOBA than Ben Rice. Have you ever heard of a certain Freddie Freeman? Freddie Freeman, 380 xWOBA. Ben Rice, 383. This is a guy that you're saying you're tired of waiting for him to turn it around. I'm
not
sorry
saying
that
I'm tired of waiting for him to turn it around, but I'm just saying he has hit at about a league average level
yes,
so
he's
far.
been a league average hitter, but he's been phenomenally unlucky. And even being phenomenally unlucky, he's still not below average because he makes phenomenal swing decisions. He hits the ball ridiculously hard and he barrels it all the time.
Okay. And I'm saying if somebody's hitting 107 in their last 10 games, I'm just, I can't say that they are the solution just yet. I think I would want him in the lineup, but it's tough to watch that and say he's completely figured it out. I would rather talk about the pitching staff and my issues with them. I think the offense has proven to me in the last few days I was a little bit harsh towards them, and I will admit that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they only have a higher WRC plus on this season than the 2009 Yankees did. They're literally on pace to be the best Yankees offense of the last 15 years. So
if you have Judge and Soto, I'm not really going to worry that much about the end of the day. But and on Friday they scored 7 runs, and you should win a game where you score 7 runs. So I think frustration, yes, but real concern, probably not as much for the offense as it is with the pitching staff and the bullpen. And
so let's talk about the pitching staff. I have somewhere I want to start.
Okay.
What do all of these players, I can be more specific. What do all of these relief pitchers have in common? I'm going to name them. Landon Knack, Aaron Bummer, Robert Suarez, Taylor Scott, Michael Grove, Andrew Nardi, Edwin Diaz, David Robertson, Tanner Scott, Justin Slayton, Taylor Rogers, AJ Minter, Joan Duran, Seranthony Dominguez, Jose Leclerc, Brian Abreu, Ryan Presley, Jason Adam, Ryan Stanek, Chris Martin, Craig Kimbrell, Jose Alvarado, Kenley Jansen, Lucas Erceg, Camilo Doval, Evan Phillips, Luke Weaver, Tommy Canley, Yanir Cano, Pete Fairbanks, Michael Kopech, CNL Perez, Ian Hamilton, Hector Neris, and Giovanni Gallegos. What do they all have in common?
They have a higher strikeout percentage than anyone on the current Yankees bullpen.
Well, some of those guys are in the current Yankees bullpen, so that wouldn't make sense. It's that they all have allowed a higher expected weighted on base average to opposing batters this year than Clay Holmes. And there are a lot of guys on that list: Lucas Erceg, David Robertson, Tanner Scott, that people want the Yankees to get because they think they should be the closer. I just want to point out Clay Holmes, lower xWOBA allowed than all of those guys this year. Just want to point that out.
Okay, then I want to hear from you what needs to happen with Clay Holmes, because I haven't really been as frustrated with him, but recently it's hard to overlook. And again, Saturday, I think he answered a lot of questions. He had a great outing, but a lot of times Clay Holmes has been kind of letting the team down this year. And I
would argue that in Baltimore, let him down. I think.
Okay, but he also, the problem with Clay Holmes is when
no. I'm not doing this because Clay Holmes, I don't care that he walked guys or whatever. Clay Holmes multiple times in the game against Baltimore made the pitch that he needed to make to get the team out of the game, to get the team the win. So people want to say, oh, well, he put guys on base. How many errors are you supposed to be able to sustain? He got a routine ground ball and a routine fly ball, and 2 guys who are good defenders didn't field them. How many more times is he supposed to get the third out?
I think he put himself in that position where I'm not going to say it was his fault, but it was his fault. I'm not going to say it wasn't his fault. I think it
wasn't. He got the third out. He made the pitch to get the third out multiple times.
He's walking guys at the bottom of the lineup. I mean, that just can't happen. And for him, it's like
obviously you shouldn't walk guys at the bottom of the lineup, but he walked guys at the bottom of the lineup, and then he got guys at the top of the lineup out. He struck out Gunnar Henderson, and then he got multiple guys to hit balls that should be 90+% of the time, 95+% of the time converted into outs. And he was let down by 2 guys who are supposed to be good defenders. I cannot put that game on Clay Holmes.
I will partially put it on Clay Holmes for being in that position in the first place. Like, Clay Holmes is going to load the bases and get that in that situation. He deserves some of the blame. I'm not saying all of it, but some of it. And I'm going to blame him for giving up a 2-run home run to Yoshida with 2 strikes against
Yeah,
and a hit who should not be hitting home runs.
The 2-run home run that he allowed to Yoshida, he shouldn't have allowed. And you know what? He allowed what? He's allowed, is that 1 home run or 2 home runs since like last August? Like, yeah. How we're really the Clay Holmes stuff. There is every time this year that he has blown a save, except for the Yoshida game, he has gotten either BABIP'd, let down by his defense, or both. Like, he never comes in and guys just are hitting lasers all over the park off of him. It doesn't happen.
The Royals game, there was some lasers being hit.
The Royals game, he got a weak ground ball to first base that should have ended the game. Like,
okay, but the follow-up there was not a weak ground ball. I think Clay Holmes. I think Clay Holmes is not somebody who the Yankees should demote from the closer's role, but it's fair to be frustrated at him.
Clay Holmes, he allowed 1 ball hit harder than 91 miles an hour in the Royals game. There was a single hit 82 miles an hour and another one hit 59 miles an hour directly into the ground that obviously should have been converted into an out. That's getting BABIP'd.
So I think the bigger problem, though, is that there hasn't really been situations for Holmes to even be put in a position to close these games.
The Yankees haven't had leads enough. That's absolutely true.
To go to the starting pitching, which I think is probably a bigger issue than Holmes, because I think at the end of the day, Holmes is going to be part of the solution and he's part of the problem, but I think he will be part of the solution. He's a really good pitcher. Like, I agree with you there. I'm frustrated because every time he comes in, I feel like he has the potential to just, shut people down 1, 2, 3. And sometimes he gets BABIP lucked, and sometimes he puts guys on. He doesn't have the command, and then the BABIP luck comes back to play a bigger role than I think it otherwise would have. But the fact of the matter is, he's just not being put in those positions with any kind of frequency recently. He's definitely someone who needs to pitch a lot. So I feel like what I'm most frustrated at is that Marcus Stroman and Nestor Cortez, and to some extent Carlos Rodon before the last few games, and really, I mean, I'll say it, Garrett Cole, like, what the hell? And
okay,
I've never said that on this podcast, but that, like,
true.
Garrett Cole against the Mets is like the most disappointed I've been in any player against another team in the life of the podcast.
Pitch well against the Mets someday, maybe not. On the count of 3, we're both going to say who the biggest problem on the starting staff is. 1, 2, 3. Marcus Stroman. Yeah. It's just like the dude. I don't know. Obviously, his thing is supposed to be like, I get so many ground balls and I get a bunch of weak contact, and that's fine that I kind of like walking people and I don't like striking people out. But like, what? I just don't know if I can watch him pitch anymore. Like, he just gets tattooed, and it's really, really bad. And it's making me nervous about the fact that his rolling 300 or rolling 100 plate appearance expected weighted on base allowed for Marcus Stroman, league average is basically like 300. Rolling 100 plate appearances against him, xWOBA 379. So remember, we were just talking about Freddie Freeman's xWOBA being 380. Marcus Stroman has effectively turned every opposing batter into Freddie Freeman in the last 100 plate appearances. That's terrible. Like, there's nothing you can do to get outs when you're turning the entire opposing team into Freddie Freeman. And that's what's transpired. And he has displayed a problem that has been really common in the Yankees rotation recently, which is He's allowing a ton of home runs. He's allowed 8 in his last 29 innings. And you just can't do that. And I feel like with everyone else on the staff, you can tell yourself the story of why things can or should go better. So, like, Luis Heel, I'm not really worried about any of it. He misses bats. He gets weak contact. Maybe he's been a little lucky on the home run per fly ball, but not a big deal. ERA estimators, kind of like Nestor Cortez. He's not walking guys. He's striking out enough guys. Like, I think he's been generally fine. There's some weird stuff in there. The performance hasn't been all that even, but it's worked out. Carlos Rodon, now he's striking out everyone and he's not issuing walks. He just needs to stop allowing everyone to barrel the ball, but things are trending in the right direction there. Generally, I would say it's been like since the end of June, he's got like a 12.5 or 12.7 K per nine in those starts. So you love to see that. And then Garrett Cole, obviously, he's Garrett Cole. He's really good and all, even though pretty much nothing has looked good. The
I was gonna
results
say,
are bad. The ERA estimators are bad. I'm not going to give up on Garrett Cole based on 35 innings. But Marcus Stroman, it's like, what do you believe in?
Right. But just for Cole for a second, like, are you concerned at all? And I mean, I watched him pitch really well on Friday, but last Friday. But yeah, I mean, it's tough to watch him get tattooed in some of these games. And like, I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. Like, it might just be one of those years where it's like, it just takes a really long time for him to find the consistency. And like, that's fine. Like, for him, it's like, just get to October because it's not like we haven't seen him be good this year. But yeah, man, like, I feel like his home run stuff is like back in full force. And that's like kind of disappointing after the whole narrative of last year was limit home runs and like do everything else well, and you don't have to strike as many guys out. But
okay,
I know it's 35 innings. I'm just like, I feel like the people need to hear like that I'm concerned a little bit about him.
So what I will say is it's 35 innings, and leading up to the start against the Mets, he had been phenomenal for the aggregate of 4 starts in a row. It was 21 and a third innings, 29 strikeouts, 5 walks, 2 home runs. Like that, and 7 earned runs. So that's a 2.95 ERA, 2.63 FIP, 3.09 xFIP, a 12.23 K per nine, even with a 358 BABIP against him. So like, unless, and I don't know what was going on because in the Mets game, he wasn't missing bats, and obviously like everything that was hit in the air was going over the wall. So that's weird and bad in various ways. But like, I feel like we got June 30th, July 6th, July 12th, July 19th. We got like exactly what we expect Garrett Cole to look like for 4 starts in a row. And I don't know that I totally like, honestly, he's only really pitched badly against the Mets.
Yeah.
Like his other start was
Boston start.
Yeah, but like
okay,
the Boston start was in the middle of like a run that I just highlighted in which he was pitching really well. Like I would have to see a lot more to be like, oh, Garrett Cole is actually bad now. Because he's getting strikeouts, he's limiting walks, his home run per fly ball should come down, BABIP might come down. And I think he'll probably increasingly strike more guys out if all his starts not against the Mets are to be believed. So yeah, I understand where you're coming from, and it sucks to see Garrett Cole pitching this way, but it would take, just in the same way that like on April 21st, people were like, you're not worried about Aaron Judge? Like, no, it would take a lot more than this for me to be worried about Garrett Cole in an existential way.
Yeah, I mean, I just need you to talk me off the ledge. And also,
and I'm glad I'm here to do that.
He was good last year. Like,
it's unreal.
He's giving up 9 home runs so far. He only gave up 20 last year. There's like a 180 inning difference. I'm just saying, I mean, I got going to the stadium and getting that bobblehead was like, that honestly makes me not care about how he's pitching right now, because that just showed me that like I was right. And now I have physical proof that I was right about it, that I get to look at every morning when I wake up.
I'm really
That's
happy that you
awesome.
were right about that.
I'm so happy about that. But anyway, new season, and I think he will be fine. Like, seeing him last Friday, I was like, okay, this is the same guy. But yeah, it does kind of suck to see him get lit up against the Mets. But back to Marcus Stroman. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. It's like, it's just not working. Like, everything is in the wrong direction, and I feel like he's doing like all of the bad things at once,
Yeah.
and his attitude is not always the best too, which also kind of isn't great. But um like, if you're striking out less people, you're walking more people, you're giving up more hits, like more base runners, you're not giving like any serious length, and it's not inspiring. I don't really know. I mean, we could talk a little bit about like what we think the fix is at the trade deadline, but yeah, it's like, I mean, it's not like if Carlos Rodon is terrible, you have to pitch him because of his contract situation, but it's not like it's a 1-year deal either. And I don't know what you exactly do here.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough. So going back to his first start in June, he's allowing very hard contact. He limits barrels, I think, better than I might expect, but like still not well, just because of his relative tendency to get guys to hit balls on the ground. But like, it's not even a 1.5 to 1, or it's just about a 1.5 to 1 strikeout to walk ratio, which you just can't have. The results have been terrible, and they've been generally deserved. I think his ERA is really kind of being buoyed on the season by some pretty good luck early on. Like, if we go from the beginning of the season to the end of May, he only had a 247 BABIP allowed. And since then it's just been really, really bad. I think realistically, what you probably have to do is stop pitching him as much. Like, if they really trade for Jack Flaherty, which is currently being rumored, obviously the other half of that rumor is that they're going to want to move Nestor, but like, you trade for Jack Flaherty, you get Clark Schmidt back into the rotation. Like, Stroman has to be the guy on the chopping block. You can't have this guy starting a playoff game, right?
Right.
So I I don't know. Do you just ride out the fact that you might get some like extremely replacement level innings from him over the rest of the year and accept that that's, I mean, I guess if they're replacement level, that's not worth anything, but like, accept that that's better than what you'd get from like a bullpen day of Yoendris Gomez? Like, that's where we
What do you
are.
do?
That's where
Right.
I am with Stroman at this point. What do you do?
What next year too? I mean, not that we're there, but like, you got that option with the innings next year. I mean, it's kind of a tricky
You
situation.
can't let him
Stuff
pitch 140 innings in 2025. You
will
can't
let
do
Jay
it.
have. Like, the
Yeah,
stuff
honestly,
doesn't get better.
maybe. I think J Happ is like the exact comparison. Maybe they should do a Davy Garcia J Happ piggyback day with like, who would it be? I don't even know. Brock Selvage and Marcus Stroman in game 2 of the ALDS.
Yeah, in an empty stadium because of the next pandemic in 2025.
Exactly.
No, but I think if you have, I mean, like, I think last night was the most impressed I have been with Carlos Rodon as a Yankee,
Dude.
just because of like the severity of not severity, like the need for good starting pitching that just hasn't been achieved on any level. And he has stepped up in the last few games where no one really else has, or mostly. Like, I mean, and to do it at Fenway against some really good hitters, and most importantly, in that fourth inning or third inning when Ref Snyder and Wong went back to back and Devers tripled off the wall, like, I thought that was it. And the fact that he didn't even let Devers score, and then that was
Yeah.
it for the rest of the game, like, major kudos to him. Whatever he has done to fix, his arsenal, his approach, I mean, if that's the Carlos Rodon that we're getting, like, sign me up for him in the playoffs. And like you said, you have Cole, you have him, you have potential acquisition, maybe Flaherty, maybe someone else. You have Clark Schmidt. I mean, I feel like, or Luis Heel, maybe. Like, I don't know what the plan is with him. Yeah, there's 5 guys, and you're not even going to need 5 for the playoffs. So I don't feel like Stroman, unless something bad happens, would be in contention for that. But he's not going to get traded. So it's really, like you said, what do you do with him? And it's definitely not going to, it's not going to get pulled from the rotation. But I agree. There might be like a way to limit him. It will be interesting what happens with Nestor Cortez, though, because I did want to talk about that, because I just feel like I never would have expected that there would be a desire to flip him. But the more I'm thinking about it, it does make sense to me. I don't know what you think.
So I guess like the Jordan Montgomery 2022 thing will always kind of stick in my mind as like is it a little bit complacent to say we have enough depth here, and then, what do you end up with? But of the guys in the rotation, Nestor is probably the most movable if you think about like coincidence of wants between a buyer and a seller. So the Yankees would prefer to move him than Clark Schmidt, even though they could get more for Clark Schmidt, because they probably see Clark Schmidt as a middle to front of the rotation guy who is under control for longer. So you would prefer to move Nestor. But then when you compare Nestor to the rest of the guys in the rotation, I guess Luis Heel is kind of his own situation. But Nestor having, some years of control, generally being pretty good when healthy, like, it makes sense that someone could want him and that team doesn't have to be an immediate contender. So they might be willing to part with something at the major league level that the Yankees could want right now, whether that's a reliever, whether that's an infielder. So it makes sense in that regard. But as I said, like, my major concern is, do we really want to find the Yankees in a situation in which, okay, so they trade for a pitcher and they let Nestor go. So now you have a 5-man rotation with Schmidt coming back. It just kind of smacks of the Frankie Montas situation, where it's like you're one catastrophic pitcher injury, and we know those are common, away from finding yourselves really without depth. So that's the part of it that makes me nervous. But if you said, like, which pitcher seems the most movable that the Yankees would also be willing to move, I think it is Nestor.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you trade Nestor, I think they need a third baseman. I mean, I think, like, I know that Chisholm's over there, and I think that for me, like, I would rather know that there's a guy who can actually field third base to use Nestor or someone else to get him. I think Chisholm can be the DJ LeMahieu guy, like that DJ LeMahieu currently can't be. I don't think it should come at the expense of Gleyber Torres. Maybe it can come at the expense of Alex Verdugo. Like, I don't even know if that's necessary. There for me though, like, I just don't, like, we've seen the play guys out of position before. I think it's a huge mistake, and definitely, like, going into the playoffs with like an uncertainty at a position like that. And if you can use Nestor to get it, then I'm all for it. I think the Jordan Montgomery, Harrison Bader thing, nobody would have cared about as much if the Yankees went like 500 in August instead of like 10 and 18 or whatever, because like we said on the podcast, they got a lot better in September and made it to the ALCS, and they would have like lost in 3 games instead of 4 games if Harrison Bader was not on that team. So
yeah, and it wasn't a lack of pitching that made that playoff run go the way that it went.
Yeah. So I'm not concerned. I think that was super overblown, and I think people are like Monday morning quarterbacking it based off what happened. And I get maybe the vibes were off, but like, again, it really did not affect everything as much as people might have thought. I just think, like, if you can use Nestor to get like a prospect, like, I think that's dumb. If you can use it to get a third baseman, or I don't know. I really think they need.
Let's talk about the third base situation.
Okay.
So, like, is it How bad is playing a guy out of position?
I mean, like, we'll see, but like, he's never played third base at all. He's been playing outfield for the last few years.
Yeah, but he has also played a ton of professional shortstop.
I mean, were you okay with Gleyber Torres playing shortstop? Like,
Were you okay with Alex Rodriguez playing third base?
Because Alex Rodriguez had a whole season to learn it and became a pretty.
What do you mean had a whole season to learn it?
Like he was at third base at the
on
beginning
opening
of the
day.
season. Yeah, and I think it's a lot different than coming in August to a new team in the middle of the season. And I also trust Alex Rodriguez a lot more than I do Jazz Chisholm.
I don't know. Jazz Chisholm was like, I've never played the outfield before,
Also,
and then became a competent center fielder.
I mean, shortstop is just, the shortstops are a lot more athletic than I think people at other positions. I just don't feel
so
like
why he can learn to play center field, but he can't learn to play third base. I'm skeptical
at this point. I don't know. I just feel like the circumstances are such that I don't feel like it's a good idea. I think he has a lot of value as like the guy that we thought DJ LeMahieu could be before we just decided DJ LeMahieu should play third base. I'm not saying get rid of Gleyber Torres. I'm not going to come on the pod and say that. I think that's dumb.
Do you think Gleyber Torres is going to be on the team on Wednesday?
Probably more than I did 24 hours ago. I thought it was a done deal that he was
better than a coin flip or worse than a coin flip that Gleyber Torres is a Yankee on Wednesday.
I think better than a coin flip.
Yeah, I agree.
But I also think like there's just, I don't know, like it's unpredictable. I wish they would just trade Alex Verdugo. I feel like what he brings to this team is not worth the like positional headache. And if you really think Jason Dominguez can be a player on this team, I think it actually works out quite well to have Jazz Chisholm as like your Jason Dominguez depth, or Jason Dominguez as your Jazz Chisholm depth. I just don't feel like the logjam needs to come from trying to get rid of Gleyber Torres.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't make any sense to try to get rid of Gleyber Torres. Gleyber Torres has been one of the better hitters on the team for his last 300 plate appearances, which is like 75% of the season. Any talk of moving him so you can play Jazz at second, and then you still have a potential corner outfield need and a need at third base is silly. I think.
What are you moving him for? Like, that's what I want to know. Nestor,
no contending. So this is what I was in a discussion about this on Twitter. So Gleyber Torres is a rental bat. Mm-hmm. So the only team that's going to want to trade for him is a contending team. What contending team is going to give you a major league piece that you like for Gleyber Torres? There isn't one, unless there's some team that I'm not thinking of with an insane surplus of bullpen depth that desperately needs a right-handed infielder. Like it doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to say a couple of things. First, I don't think it's that bad to play Jazz Chisholm in the infield. I don't think it's that bad to play him at third base specifically. I mean, Ryan Garcia pointed out something that I really liked, which is that the Yankees won 100 games in 2018 with Miguel Andujar as their everyday third baseman. He had -21 defensive runs saved, -7 outs above average at third base that year. Like, that is Vlad Jr. levels of bad at third base, maybe worse. The reason it was fine is because he was hitting well. If Jazz hits, as long as he can play third base fine, like competently, like better than a statue would over there, I'm really not that worried about it. And I think you need Alex Verdugo insurance / Jason Dominguez insurance. Alex Verdugo's WRC plus in the last 3 months is in the 70s. Like, he's been terrible. And yeah, he's been like a little bit hot recently, but it kind of feels like he only hits against the Red Sox. And even with being a little bit hot recently, his xWOBA in July is like 280. So that doesn't translate to any better than his full season numbers. And Jason Dominguez might come up and post a 355 xWOBA and be like a well above average hitter, but he also might, not show great plate discipline and be kind of unwilling to walk, which is what he's been in limited playing time in the minors this year, and be like basically a league average hitter, which is what all the rest of season projection systems except the bat basically think that he'll be. And if you have basically a league average hitter in Jason Dominguez, I don't know, maybe you bring him up because he's a switch hitter and he's not going to be killed by lefties like Verdugo and whatever, and you play Jazz at third base. But like, I don't know. I would accept a third baseman, but if Jazz can hold it down, I think that's really nice. And then hopefully Dominguez makes Verdugo expendable and you have Trent Grisham as an awesome bench piece. But so do you want to, you really want a third baseman? That's what it's all about. And then you've made Verdugo expendable by making Jazz a full-time outfielder. Is that how you see it?
Like kind of. I mean, I guess there's the John Birdie of it all to consider.
John Birdie had a setback, right? So we don't know. Yeah.
I mean, he is, I don't know, just as another person out there. I mean, my question is, what happens to DJ LeMahieu? Like, is he done, or is he just like ride the bench done?
It's so tough because here's the reason that I'm not sure DJ LeMahieu is done with the roster constructed as it is at 6:23 p.m. on Monday. They really like him as a defensive replacement. He comes in for Ben Rice late in games a lot. And I don't think they trust Oswaldo Cabrera to play. Like, if they need a sure-handed defensive first baseman, which who's to say if DJ LeMahieu can really be described that way, but that's what they think of him. I don't think they trust Oswaldo Cabrera to be that guy. I don't think either catcher can be that guy, and I don't think you take your second catcher off the bench. So, like, is that what keeps DJ LeMahieu alive? Also, I think, like, in fairness to DJ LeMahieu, even though his average launch angle this year does start with a 0, I think it's 0.3. He's gotten phenomenally unlucky. Like, he has a 317 xwOBA, which would suggest he should be like a league average to slightly above league average hitter, and he has a 230 wOBA. And that shouldn't sustain over 157 plate appearances. But like, it is tough. His bat isn't making any arguments that he should remain in the lineup. So it might be that they see him as a viable defensive replacement at the corners that keeps him around, which is such a weird kind of like full circle thing. Like, remember, he wasn't in the lineup on 2019 opening day, but they were like, yeah, he's going to play all over the place.
That's like literally like every time, like, I feel like I have an argument about DJ LeMahieu. Like, he was never expected to be like a starter, and then now he's getting paid like one, and maybe it's just like better to send him back. Also, he's the captain, so.
Does anyone get that? Have you told that story on the podcast? Okay.
I'm gonna say it in a way that like is not gonna get me in trouble.
Okay.
Someone that I was talking to, a friend, when I was watching a game, we were arguing. It's the common argument like Aaron Judge shouldn't be the captain because the Yankees aren't playing well and he's not a leader or whatever. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna like play along because I kind of want to know like more about this. So I was like, okay, like, yeah, I agree. Like, Judge shouldn't be the captain. So, like, what do you think? Like, where do we go from here? And that person was like, oh, it's got to be someone, like, who's a leader. I'm like, yeah, definitely. Leadership important. They're like, okay, also somebody who's been around for a while. I'm like, of course, veteran leadership, even more important. Somebody who has like a calm demeanor, even keeled. I'm like, absolutely. You don't want to get too emotional as the captain.
Yep.
So where does this go? Like, I was like, who is this person? And the person thought about it, and they said, it's DJ LeMahieu. And I was like, all right, I can't do this anymore. So now
DJ
whenever
LeMahieu,
I watch
captain
games,
of the Yankees.
Whenever I watch games, I was like, oh, there's the captain, DJ LeMahieu. And
that's awesome.
I mean, we don't like to make fun, but DJ LeMahieu is like the farthest person should not be like a captain of anything or a leader of anything. He is the epitome of like show up and do your work and go home. But yeah, so I will probably remind that person a few more times when we watch DJ LeMahieu play. So now you all get it too.
That's quite.
I'm not going to get in trouble.
All right, Whipple, give me your trade deadline wish list. Who's on it?
I think I want them to get Flaherty. That's actually like a great, I think, kind of
I agree.
middle point between like, okay, it's not, an impact, or sorry, forget I said that. It's not an ace, quote unquote, but I don't think an ace is really out there. But it's not like a guy who the Yankees are trying to fix or has huge red flags. It's not a huge contract they're taking on. I think it's a kind of a great meeting point between a guy who'd really help them in the current situation, and who is available. And I don't think will cost the moon. But definitely I'm like really liking that rumor. And I don't know if Jazz would have been on it, but I wasn't opposed to hearing that as well. And I think there is a place for him somewhere. So I'm happy. So far, so good. I mean, I want a third baseman, recognizing that the options are limited. I mean, I feel like the problem with Matt Chapman is just the contract, right? Like the contract is so weird. You're not really gonna get like a 1-year deal. You could get like a 3-year deal if he exercised the options. So, but I think he is kind of the guy that I would love to see in a vacuum. I mean, can Yandy Diaz play third, or is that just people are saying get? Okay, I didn't
the
know.
Rays. I don't think he really can. The Rays, I don't think have asked him to do so at all this year. I'm just checking on that. Yeah, he played 31 innings of third base last year, and that's the last time he played third base. When he was effectively a full-time or almost full-time third baseman in 2022, he had -14 defensive runs saved, -8 outs above average, and -6 fielding run value. So, that's that Miguel Andujar range. So if we're fine with it with Jazz, maybe you'd be fine with it with Diaz, but that's the kind of territory you'd be playing in.
Yeah. I mean, it's everything I said about third baseman, I recognize that the options aren't great. So, I mean, I think I would rather put the resources toward pitching. I will say I think if you're going to trade someone like Nestor, I would like to see them maybe get creative for a third baseman, but I think you need a starter and you need a reliever, and you definitely don't need to trade one of the current hitters. If you'd like to trade Alex Verdugo, I'm always open to it, but I don't think there's like a need to subtract from the hitting stat or the hitters. So I'll say I hope they finish the Flaherty deal, and I mean push in your chips and try to get Tanner Scott. I mean the price of relievers is pretty high, but I feel like that's kind of the guy that like I definitely have seen floated around the most. I'd love to see that happen. So if you do something like that for reliever starter and then trade Nestor and see what you can get. I mean, I feel like Brendan Donovan is another guy that like maybe
You've
that
been
works
on
with,
the
like,
Brendan Donovan beat.
yeah, like if you want to do this Cardinals Yankees trade major league player for major league player, like, and you want to get a little more, I don't know, you want to get creative with it. That could be a guy. I think if they get Flaherty, like I would be happy with the deadline, no matter what shook out, because I think they'll probably find a reliever from nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, is there like names I'm missing? Oh, the other thing, I think Blake Snell is really interesting. Like, I feel like he wouldn't exercise that option, and that could be a really impact guy.
Yeah, the Blake Snell stuff is interesting. And I was under the impression that like you had more of a chance of pitching for the Yankees this year than Blake Snell, and I was disabused of that notion. So
hey, I pitched really well in Somerset, remember 2 years ago?
That's true. That's what I'll say about the Blake Snell situation is it could happen. With respect to my wish list, yeah, there's kind of it's an interesting situation because the reliever market's so weird. One guy that I have my eye on is Kirby Yates. He's been phenomenal this year. It doesn't really seem like the Rangers are super buying. He's a rental, and just feels like he's kind of been terrific. He's missing a ton of bats, maybe a few too many walks, but like that's it. Mark Leiter Jr. is a guy that I've seen mentioned. The Yankees have a long history of trading with the Cubs, and he's under control for a few years. He's also been striking out a ton of guys, which we love. Some other guys who I've just kind of come across, I think the Scott Efros of this year would be Robert Garcia from the Nationals. He's been really good, striking out more than 12 per 9, walking just over 3, left-handed. He's had some bad like ERA luck, but xERA is under 2.5, FIP is 2.5, xFIP is 2.5. So like he's been really good. He had a good kind of short debut of 32 innings, 25 games last year. So he's a guy who's just kind of stuck out to me in research I've been doing super recently. I don't know that he'd be available if the, Nationals see themselves a couple years down the road as contending. I don't think you trade a guy who's under a year of service time, but could be interesting. He feels like, as I said, kind of the Scott F. Ross of who's out there now. But of course, the trademark Yankees move is to pick up a reliever that I've never heard of and then turn him into a guy who's nails. That's Clay Holmes. That's Wandy Peralta. That's Scott Efros. That's, I guess, Luke Weaver we knew about because of the trades he'd been in, but not like for his pitching prowess. So, he's in that group, Chad Green, whoever else. Starters, I share the Snell intrigue. I don't know how that would pan out. I don't know if the Giants are doing some like combo buying, selling, if they're selling, how that all works. I would like Jack Flaherty a lot, but it's not clear if there's really something there, or if we just got nightingaled. I would like Gleyber Torres to remain on the Yankees. That's definitely something. Would I like them to add an infielder? Sure. I wonder if they could make something work with the Cubs and get Paredes out of there, even though Paredes is under control for multiple years. So
that'd be wild.
That it would be. So, the Cubs might not want to, move him immediately. That may not have been why they did what they did. I like Matt Vierling from the Tigers, not just because he lived in my dorm, can play third base, can play the outfield, could probably play some first base. I like, honestly, something that I think maybe is not being talked about enough, although we kind of poked fun at this when I told you, like, I want you to post that the Yankees are too left-handed, is like, the Yankees have been getting kind of carved up by left-handed pitching this year. So just getting anyone on the team who can hit lefties would be good. So Matt Vierling is not in that group, but like, I don't know. I would imagine some of the guys who can hit lefties are available. I saw Ryan Garcia talking about Carlos Santana. It's not impossible that the Nats would finally be willing to part with Lane Thomas. Not that the Yankees are necessarily looking for an outfielder, but there's an interesting like platoon opportunity there. I don't know.
Wait, I got a crazy name for you.
Please.
I think he's starting a rehab assignment.
I think he's starting
an infielder
for
the Toronto Blue Jays.
Oh, wait. Joey Votto?
No, but that would be crazier. What if, like, okay, it's never gonna happen, but what if
is it Isaiah Kiner Falefa?
Like, he kind of is the guy that we are dancing around, that he fits that mold. I mean, it's not gonna happen, but like, right? Like,
he did win a Gold Glove at third base, but dude, his ex-WOBA is 291. He's the same guy that he has been.
I know, but like, it is funny that like, it
is funny.
Jonathan India is definitely one that's come up. I forgot to mention.
Yeah, Jonathan India would be exciting.
I mean, don't look at like his June splits compared to the rest of his season.
Don't look at the fact that his season is just one ridiculously good month.
Yeah.
Should we answer some questions from listeners and followers?
Sure.
How much money would you pay to extend Juan Soto? And it was clarified to me that it is me personally paying it, or you personally in this instance, and you're paying the money to Juan Soto.
But like, I can't pay him like his contract, right? It's just like, what can I chip in?
I think it's what can you chip in?
Okay. Let's see. That's a good question. I mean, I start by selling my car, so that's like instant money. I mean, none of this is gonna make a difference, but I probably like say you can have like a portion of my salary for a long time.
You give him a royalty.
Yeah, I'll give you like
Yeah.
bonuses, and so Juan Soto is banking on like my legal career. Like
Yeah.
if I truly hit it big, then like Juan Soto could have like nice little chunk of change coming in.
That's
So
true. It'd be like
I
an investment property,
yeah,
like a
that's probably
passive
like
income.
right. I feel like that's my best chance here as opposed to like small assets. So that's what
Yeah.
I'll say.
I'd give him at least $15. From the same at Noseball Burner, what makes Alex Verdugo such an incredible baseball player? I think it's possible that this person was drunk when they were asking these questions, because I don't think Alex Verdugo is an incredible baseball player. And we're just going to go past that. This question I really like. Will Ben Rice play over or under 100 games at catcher in his Major League Baseball career?
I
So
think
just for reference, can I get to, let's see, just for reference, Isaiah Kiner Falefa has like 500 innings at catcher. Let me go to Baseball Reference and get you his exact appearances, because I think he and Dalton Varsho will probably be like the most helpful. So Isaiah Kiner Falefa has played 73 games at catcher. Dalton Varsho has played 82. So I'm going to go under for Ben Rice based on those. But is there like a catcher first base thing? Like, is it more like a Victor Martinez or Carlos
just like
Santana?
I mean, or is he in a position where what if like he goes to a new team and they're like, we want you to catch, and then he bangs all out one season. Like there's a lot of variables. I would still say under, but I think like I don't know. I think it's gonna be like it's either like not at all or it's like a lot over.
Yeah, Carlos Santana has 330 games. And Victor Martinez actually stayed a full-time catcher longer than I remembered. He had 858, which was almost as many as he had at DH. So yeah, I think you're right. If it's over by a lot, but I'm going to go under just because I think it's reasonable that he'd stay a Yankee, and I don't think they would do two lefty catchers together.
Yeah,
Two lefty hitting catchers, that is.
Loving their life at catcher right now.
Oh, yeah, as they should be.
Right, unequivocal, like, biggest success in terms of, like, expectations before the season, expectations now. Yeah. I think Yankees have hit the metaphorical home run at the catcher position, and in addition to some actual home runs.
Yeah, plenty of world-famous home runs. From Kin Knows Ball, why does the Yankees offense stink? Parentheses, I'm here to fuel the rant about bad contact hitters. Obviously, quality of contact is more important than quantity. The Yankees have the highest expected weighted on base in baseball, the highest WRC plus. They stink when they prioritize quantity of contact over quality. Alex Verdugo, Anthony Volpe, I'm looking at you. But the Yankees offense doesn't stink. As I said, they're on pace to be the best offense relative to their league in the last 15 years. Is a lot of that on the shoulders of a few guys? Yes, but that's the way these things tend to be. But when the Yankees offense stinks, it's because they think that swinging and missing is so terrible, hitting home runs isn't very good, and putting the ball in play is really important. And all of those things are wrong.
Agreed.
From Papa Cole at Papa Cole _45. How sustainable do you think Verdugo's recent hot-ish stretch is? And where would you rank Austin Wells in the top catchers in MLB? I would say not sustainable. As I said, I think he only hits against the Red Sox. xwOBA in July under 300. What do you think? Because the Austin Wells question is interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think like sustainable in that like he might like have like a few weeks that like boost his stats to mediocrity from like sub mediocrity. He's not good enough to like completely pull his like
stats he's not suddenly going to be a 115 WRC plus guy. Yeah.
He's just not that good. So.
Yeah. He's a league average hitter, and that's about it.
That is interesting.
So where would you rank Austin Wells in the top catchers in Major League Baseball? And this is actually, I think, a really interesting question, because Austin Wells in like 200 fewer plate appearances than every other catcher in the game has suddenly like caught up to them in Fangraphs war. So I'll sort on just the American League, even though the question was in baseball. So American League catcher Fangraphs war. Cal Raleigh, 2.9 in 397 plate appearances. Adley Rutschman, 2.6 in 437 plate appearances. Austin Wells, 2.5 in 234 plate appearances. So he has 163 fewer plate appearances than Cal Raleigh and 203 fewer than Rutschman. And he's right there in WAR. He has a 118 WRC plus, which is the same as Adley. It only trails David Fry, Connor Wong, which is ridiculous, and Logan O'Hoppe in the American League. Like, Austin Wells is phenomenal. And he's still getting unlucky relative to his ex-WOBA. He's walking 13% of the time and striking out 19% of the time. He does everything you'd want him to do, and his defense has been phenomenal.
Yeah, he had 0-for-0 game when I was at the game, which I'm like, that's
that.
I'm like such a fun odd stat, but I think kind of symbolizes what his last few months have been like.
So currently he's 6th among catchers with at least 150 plate appearances in Fangraphs war, and everyone ahead of him has at least 302 plate appearances. I think like my top 2 guys are probably William Contreras and Patrick Bailey, probably not in that order. Bailey's just such an insane defender. And the fact that he's hitting for a 113 WRC plus, like it would be so hard to be better than that package. And then obviously William Contreras, really good hitter, who's playing, acceptable defense. But like, I think Wells is we certainly have to be talking about him as a top 5 guy, right?
Yeah, I mean, if this keeps up, I mean, there's no way just the bar is so low for catcher offense, and he is clearing that bar, and his defense has been really good. I mean, there's no way that at this point he's not entering that conversation. And I mean, if this keeps up, then yeah, I think like you're looking at a rookie of the year contender right now, which is the
absolutely
other part of this. Like,
yeah,
that will be a fun race because the Yankees have 2 really important pieces in that race.
I would love Austin Wells to be rookie of the year. But yeah, I got Bailey, the Contreras brothers, Adley, and Wells in the top 5, and maybe I could quibble about the order. That's probably how I see it.
Yeah, and I mean, if you don't think he's top 5, like you can't think he's that much lower. Like that's it's not like a huge gap. Like he is there, and I think that's cool.
It is really cool. We talked about top trade targets. From at postseason Stanton, that's Andrew. Do we think Jason Dominguez is in the Yankees' plans down the stretch and in the postseason like fans want to think? That's a hard question.
I hope so, but I also would understand. I don't know. Like, let's see how the next 24 hours shake out.
Yeah.
But like, I have a hard time thinking the Yankees are going to hold anything back this year that's going to help them win. And I think Jason Dominguez really can help them win. Now, this would have been a lot more clear if he didn't have his injury with rehab and everything. So I don't know like what the position looks like in a few weeks. But yeah, I just think the Yankees mentality right now is more push the chips into the center of the table than we've seen. And I think calling up Jason Dominguez is like a very low stakes way of doing that. Like if they call him up in, end of August or whatever, and he's not that good, like I don't think it's no harm, no foul to just not play him in October. But I don't think they're going to like trade anyone and clear the way for Dominguez, be like, okay, now he's here. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's worth figuring out if he can contribute, but
yeah, definitely.
If they get a real third baseman and Jazz or Verdugo is playing well and there's not an opening at DH, like maybe there's a slot for him and maybe there's not. Maybe there's a slot for him and he produces, and maybe there's a slot for him and he doesn't produce. Like, I think it's really hard to say. I don't think the Dominguez that we'll see this year, if we see him, is going to look just like the Dominguez of last year. I don't think, that's not a crazy thing to say, but like if you call up Jason Dominguez and he's a 120 WRC plus bat, that would be amazing. I think it's probably more likely that he's around league average, and we'll see if that's something that is beneficial to the Yankees or not.
Mm-hmm.
From Taylor Jackson at Taylor Jackson 17. All I want to know is how mad Will was being logged out of this account while Gleyber Torres went scorched earth. Well, I wasn't mad because on the trip I was on, it would have been impossible for me to be mad. But Gleyber Torres walking 11% of the time while posting a 303, 378, 576 line for a 169 WRC plus while I was away was definitely a little bit painful for me. Missing multiple home runs that he hit and some big hits did hurt. But I'm just glad that I'm here to see him continue to ride this wave. I don't think it's over. And I would point out that, I've been talking about his last 300 plate appearances a lot, but just since, in July, he's posted a 135 WRC plus, walking almost 12% of the time and striking out 18%. Like, the guy's just good. I want that to be clear and known. Kenny Glantz at KMcAwesome sent in a bunch of questions. We've gone on for a long time, but hey, that's what the trade deadline episode requires. What happened to my Clay Holmes? Nothing. He's still good. What happened to all the pitchers? Is Jazz all that jazz? Where do you play Jason? Who would you have lead off? I think we've talked about basically all of these except who we'd lead off. Who would you lead off?
I just want them to put Jazz at lead off.
Even though they wouldn't let him run?
Do you really want Verdugo? The whole let him run thing. Do you really want Verdugo at leadoff?
No, I want Gleyber, Rice, or Wells.
I mean, Gleyber is interesting. I think Wells has got to be cleanup. I think that is working really well.
Sure.
And I would say Gleyber or Jazz. I don't know. It's not with Rice, I guess, but I think Gleyber can actually do a good job at leadoff. It would be funny if that's how it ended up. After we've gone through everyone, it just comes back to what it was at the beginning.
Exactly.
But I want to see Jazz. I want to try it and see what happens.
From Rich Hernandez, member of the Crosstown Sports family, is Carlos Rodon good or bad? We've talked about this. He is allowing too many barrels, but he's good. From Rob Sassio. DeAndre Navarro son or Sal Fasano daughter?
I don't even know how to answer that.
I think Sal Fasano daughter. How will we remember Jahmai Jones' tenure with the New York Yankees? We'll remember his brother who played wide receiver at Notre Dame. From Waleed Harani, some of this is tricky with the roster not being finalized, but plan with Jason and Verdugo. I think we talked about that. And finally, from losses above replacement, should games after the All-Star break be called the second half, even though it's nowhere near half of the season? Absolutely not. The season is an even number. It should just be 81 and 81. This is something that bothers me to no end. What do you think?
No, I think it's funny that it's so uneven, but I also just kind of want to just let it ride. It gets worse every year. I think the second half is now 20 games past, but it's one of those things where I'm you know what, whatever.
Yeah, no, it's completely ridiculous. Oh, Aaron Judge homered in the first inning. The Yankees have a 1-0 lead. And then finally, the question that we'll end this podcast on: should number 13 have been retired for Alex Rodriguez?
Yes, 100 million times yes.
I gotta go no on this. No, Whipple. I'm gonna tell you why. There are too many damn retired numbers.
A-Rod deserves it.
There are way too many retired numbers. My dad has a lot of takes that I don't agree with about the New York Yankees, but he is spot on about retired numbers. If you want to retire Ruth, Gehrig, DiMaggio, Mantle, Berra, I'm with you. But we're retiring Bill Dickey's number. Maybe that's long enough ago that we got to live with it. But Bernie Williams and Don Mattingly and Andy Pettit and Paul O'Neill has his number retired. Just because you're on a team where you win a bunch of World Series, you get your number retired. We gotta chill out.
No, I think you conflate a lot of things there. I don't think they're sitting around a room Bill Dickey when that happened. It was a different era.
So the recent ones, there are too many recent ones. Andy Pettit, Jorge Posada, Bernie Williams, Paul O'Neill, We don't
Okay.
need those numbers retired.
No. I think Paul O'Neill should not have his number retired, and they kind of made that situation really
Yeah,
for
that
themselves.
LaTroy Hawkins got to
Yeah,
win.
but I counterpoint, like, this is the Yankees. Like,
But
these are
this
all
is
the
how
great
you
players
end
we have.
up. This is how you end up with like Aaron Judge wearing 99
And
and
that's
Luis
really
Hill wearing
awesome.
81. And
No, I
is
think
it?
it's awesome. Aaron Judge wearing 99, which probably wouldn't have happened
It
if
only works for Aaron Judge.
yeah, and that number will also get retired. Like, I think the Yankees have the guys to pull it off. Bring me more retired numbers. I don't care. I want to see it.
Okay.
But
All
Bill
right,
Dickey has the
Whipple.
same number retired as Yogi
Yeah,
Berra, so
no,
that doesn't
Bill
even
Dickey.
fit your
Yeah, Bill
argument.
Dickey. It wouldn't have
The
worked.
one person that actually doesn't fit your argument. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no, that's true. But like, they didn't retire CeCe's number, right?
no,
But no one's worn it.
no one's worn it. I feel like
See,
the
it's
Gardner
like
one. Yeah, CeCe's gonna get it retired. The fact that Gardner actually there wasn't even like any smoke about that. The whole Gardner ending his career situation was so weird.
that's an
Uh,
off-season topic.
yeah. Anyway,
All right, Whipple, your confidence out of 10 in this team going into the trade deadline.
I mean, I definitely the last two games have kind of restored some of my faith, but I mean, I want to see more of what we've seen the last two games. I think I got to go 8 just because it definitely has been tough to watch some of their recent play. But having said that, their standings position is largely unchanged somehow. And I have more confidence in the Red Sox being frauds than I do in the Yankees
True.
continuing to play this poorly. Like, I think that's the one thing that kind of turned this around for me is like, well, the Red Sox are frauds. Like, I just
They
want to
are.
say they're frauds in the worst possible way. I respect the Orioles. I don't respect the Red Sox. And watching like the last few games has made me so angry and then happy and kind of restored some of my uh patriotism, I guess, or fandom. Like I just I got fired up again. I was like, screw the Red Sox. There's no reason they should be playing this well. So the
Yeah.
Yankees are not frauds, and they just need to play better. And if they play better, then I will be happy. But they're largely in the same position. And I feel like that at least makes me happy that they'll have the chance to win the division, which, if the Orioles played marginally better, would probably not be the case. So I feel like 8 is the best way to summarize that. But man, Alex Cora, like, I'm sorry to take this off the rails, but Alex Cora should not get the accolades he does.
No,
I'm
he
so
shouldn't.
angry about that. He last place manager for like multiple years.
Yeah, no,
Anyway,
he's
sorry.
it's stupid. The Yankees just turned a double play Jazz Chisholm to Gleyber Torres to Ben Rice. It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. To get Trey Turner too. Like, Trey Turner's not slow. Anyway, 8.5 for me. I'm confident that they'll address the pitching situation. I like what I'm seeing from Carlos Rodon. I'm not worried about Garrett Cole, and they have a phenomenal offense that I think should only get better. As Gleyber Torres continues to do what he's doing, as Ben Rice gets his deserved results, as Austin Wells gets his deserved results. I'm just very confident in what this team will be able to pull off, but I do think they need to add depth to the pitching staff. Whipple, that wraps things up for us. But before we sign off, any parting shots from you as we roll into the trade deadline with Luis Hill getting out of a scoreless first inning?
Yeah, now I'm mad about the Red Sox again. And to follow up, the Green Monster is like the most fraudulent creation on planet Earth. And Rafael Devers would be the fact that Rafael Devers has 5 triples this year is only because he plays at Fenway Park. This is the least athletic, most overweight, the most Fenway fraud guy. I just feel like I hadn't sat down and watched a few Yankees Red Sox games as like closely as I have the last few days. And it's just like, okay, like the Red Sox are such merchants of that ballpark. And the whole no lead is safe at Fenway thing is just because it's a bandbox. It's what is the Green Monster? Like, it should not be a real thing. And I'm sorry. Like, I can't believe this team is actually good. They're worse than they were at the same point last year. And last year's team was not good. So they lost series to the Rockies. They got hammered by the Dodgers. Like, I'm not going to buy into that. So let's just do the right thing and all root against the Red Sox.
That's a great parting shot. I'd like to point out that they keep claiming that Fenway Park was built in like 1912. None of the 1912 ballpark is still there. Like, it burned down in like the 30s. This is all like,
yeah. Also, their owner was a racist. Like, the list goes on. David Ortiz at steroids.
David Ortiz did steroids, shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. Dustin Pedroia, least deserving MVP of this century, et cetera, et cetera.
I might have to go back to Boston next year. Like, it might be time to like.
Whipple, we've gone on for too long. You can follow.
Okay, I'm sorry. I felt all fired up again, so I'm sorry.
That's it for episode 117 of the Yankees Files podcast, the first episode of my married life, the last episode before the trade deadline in 2024. You can keep up with us, everything we do at yankeesfiles.com. You can follow us on Twitter where we're at Yankees Files. The podcast is available wherever you get your podcast. We hope you will rate, review, subscribe, download, listen to it a million times, but only if you like it. If you don't like it, we hope you just do the things that boost our numbers and listenership and all of that. We are, of course, part of the Crosstown Sports Network with Joey and Rich and Matt and Caroline and Austin and all the folks. So you can find all the Crosstown Sports stuff on Twitter at CrosstownSN or on YouTube, youtube.com/@CrosstownSports, which is where the video version of every podcast goes up. You can also get the video version if you are listening on Spotify. Whipple, that does it for this episode of Yankees Files. We will be back similar time, similar place next week to recap everything that goes on with the trade deadline, the series against the Phillies, and everything else. Until then, let's go Yankees.